What do you think of when you hear the word scatter? In my mind, I think of many objects that are not all in the same place, or many objects that are a distance apart from each other in a random pattern. Scatter diagrams are used to plot data to try to understand if there is a relationship between the two variables plotted. If there's no relationship, the data points are scattered randomly. But if there is a relationship, there will be an obvious pattern. Thus, it is easier to predict how a change in one variable will change a second variable. A scatter diagram is a graph of two economic variables that describe what, for example, price and amount of pizza eaten, how, the cost of producing a pizza, and for whom goods and services are produced, for whom the total amount of pizza eaten in a country. The purpose of a scatter diagram is to provide a visual relationship to assist in causation or correlation analysis. Essentially, we create a diagram to help us determine whether one economic variable affects or causes change in another economic variable. So, for example, let's try an exercise. Let's try to plot what we think hair length versus height would look like. Now notice, when we write hair length versus height, this is y versus x, the y-axis versus the x-axis. So hair length will be on the y-axis, height will be on the x-axis. Here I've created a graph, hair length in centimeters versus height in centimeters. I haven't put any numbers or values on this because it's irrelevant at the moment. Generally, when you're creating a scatter diagram, you're given data on length and height. It will come in the form of values. Each coordinate, x and y, is given, and each pair of values, each pair of coordinates, is then plotted on the graph. Once all of the coordinates are plotted, then the diagram is considered so as to determine whether a relationship occurs between the two economic variables. Consider hair length versus height. Do you think that there is any type of relationship between the two? I know people who are short that have short hair. I know people that are short that have long hair. I know people that are tall that have short hair, and people that are tall and have long hair, and all points in between. If you look at this graph, can you say that there is a clearly defined pattern? Can you draw a line that says most points are closest to this line? I don't think so. This is a relatively random pattern. Therefore, it's very unlikely that a relationship exists between hair length and height. Consider the second exercise, the number of wrinkles versus age. I have the graph. Now try to visualize what happens to the number of wrinkles on a person's face when they get older. Well, generally, they increase. Now, which variable is on which axis? Since I've written it out for you, number of wrinkles versus age, number of wrinkles should be on the y-axis and age on the x. Again, anytime you're given this type of analytical exercise, you'll be given data values in tabular form with a series of x and y coordinates which indicate observations made in reality. Then these real observations are plotted so as to try to understand a general model of reality. And that's the key here. We're trying to plot actual data so that we can get a general model of reality. So as you can imagine, when you start to plot these points, perhaps you have a varied range of values, but generally you should be able to draw a line through the scatter diagram, which gives a general idea of what the relationship is between the two variables. In this case, as age increases, the number of wrinkles a person has also increases. Thus, we can see how scatter diagrams help us to determine in a relatively non-scientific manner whether a relationship exists between two variables. And this is the basis of economic analysis, gathering actual data to determine if a general model can be formally produced.